I just finished rereading Northanger Abbey, which is one of Jane Austen's lesser known and lesser adapted novels, but it's still a fabulous, fabulous book. And we're going to look at the fact that being a very honest person in a very dishonest society is a thing that has a high price for Catherine, but it also gives her a high prize at the end, because it makes her get the things that she set out to look for, even though she is a bit of a fish out of water. So that's what we're going to look at here in this video. And a couple things about this book is that it was written over two different periods in Jane Austen's life. She has what is called the juvenilia, which is the things that she wrote when she was very young, and the audience for those tended to be her family and friends, right? She wasn't thinking that she was going to publish, and that is what the beginning of Northanger Abbey is like. She started writing it around 1799, it's unclear, but she sold it while she was alive and it never got published. And then after she died in 1817, her brother Henry published it alongside Persuasion. He changed the name. It used to be called Susan. Catherine, the protagonist, used to be called Susan. And then we got Northanger Abbey. The wonderful thing about Northanger Abbey is that this very young Jane Austen decided that she was going to tell this story of this young girl who was completely nondescript, nothing amazing about her. She grows up there's 10 siblings. She is one of them. Her parents, because her dad is in the clergy, just don't lie. They're always honest. They don't lie truthfully lying. They don't go out and tell like outright lies, but they don't also do the high society lies that also get done in Regency England. And off she goes into the world. She gets taken to Bath by some family friends, and suddenly this person that has grown up in this very truthful universe where everybody says what they mean finds herself surrounded by all these people, none of whom ever mean what they're saying, and that becomes the thing that makes her fall apart many times and make a million mistakes. But it also in the end is the thing that makes Catherine somebody that people really love, because in a society that's dishonest, isn't it nice to finally run into somebody who's not always full of crap? One of the topics that Jane Austen is looking at in Northanger Abbey is early female friendships and the difference between maturity levels and that love that you feel for the girl that you meet and who is so glamorous and fabulous and seems to know everything, that passion that we have for our peers. And in the case of Catherine Morland, she runs into Isabella Thorpe, who comes from a family that's also in the gentry, but they don't have as much money as the Morelands, and the Morelands don't have that much money either. And she has been out and about for a few years trying to find a mate, and of course she would like to find a mate who has money, whereas Catherine, this isn't, love is sort of in her mind, but she doesn't have a lot of ideas about how to do it. First of all, she's completely clueless about how to flirt and what to say, and Isabella is really good at it, and she not only is good at sort of manipulating guys and pretending that she doesn't like them when she in fact does, and saying the opposite of what she means and giving them the coquettish smile, but she's also very good at manipulating Catherine into sort of doing things that she would necessarily not want to do usually, but she ends up doing them because she's so in love with Isabella. And eventually her brother James also falls in love with Isabella, and even they become engaged, and there's this whole fabulous love affair that happens between them until it's very clear that she's ready to drop him for a wealthier guy who also ends up playing her. So it's an interesting, and this is not a particular spoiler because you can see it from the start. You can see that Isabella is a foil to Catherine that's just not going to do all the things that Catherine does with an open heart. She's just always manipulating, always playing, and as with Austen, often these lesser, younger, unmarried female villains, if you want to even call them that, are a little tragic because she doesn't have any power, and at the end, all of her scheming leads to nothing. She ends up known for what she is, which is like a social climber who will drop you when she needs to drop you, and it doesn't go the way she would have wanted it to go. But for Catherine, it's a first encounter with just how scheming the society that she was born into is, and it tests her morals and her ability to stand her ground when she wants to be truthful. In Northanger Abbey, our protagonist, Catherine, meets her match, sort of, in John Thorpe, who is the brother of her temporarily best friend. And while it takes Catherine a long time to figure out that she's being played by Isabella, this guy's lies are so preposterous that she finds herself pretty quickly realizing that she is in a world where people who are theoretically good people, who are the brother of your best friend and who go to Oxford and who are the friend of your brother, because John is friends with James, who is her beloved brother, are complete and utter liars. And she's having to navigate this situation. And and of course he falls in love with her, or he thinks he does, because of course he's not only a liar, but he talks all the time. She doesn't get to say anything. He's like, oh, you're perfect, I love you, blah, blah, blah. And it's a moment for the protagonist to really understand just how preposterous the society that she belongs to is, and also to start to gain some power as a character, to get some strength and to learn to say no and to fight back. And as the story progresses, we learn that he and his lies they play a big role in her life almost collapsing because he just can't stop lying in one way or another, and he doesn't even notice it, right? Like, he's that kind of a liar. So it's a character that our protagonist is able to be smarter than and go beyond him, but she is also, eventually he gets her. He screws her over majorly without even thinking about it, because that's how braided lying is into this society, and how little people even consider it, because it's just part of it. So he's a really fun character, and Austen loves these ridiculous guys who fall in love with her fabulous girls, and he's a pretty good one. Northanger Abbey is an Austen novel, and of course there has to be a love story. And in this love story, Catherine falls for Henry Tilney, who is somebody who is also within the gentry like she is. He has more money than she does, though he, being a younger brother, is in the clergy. Though he will inherit a lot of money later, we find out. And she, who has never actually dated really or been out in society, is completely infatuated with him from the start. And there's a moment in which she goes out with his sister, who is a lovely truthful character, just like Henry is a lovely, truthful character. And Catherine goes out with Eleanor, and she makes it very clear in the questions that she asks that she is madly in love with Henry, which is something that a character like Isabella or even Eleanor herself would never do. You don't want to show your hand. Even in today's world, we don't want to show our hand. If we're madly in love with somebody and we don't know if they love us back, the last thing we're going to do is lay our cards really openly to that person's sister so that that person knows. But at the end, the way that the story plays out is the fact that he knew of her affection is the thing that led him to like her back. At first he wasn't that interested, right? Because she's unique and she's different and she's honest. But, you know, he has many options out there. But knowing that this girl liked him in a place where the girls weren't going to tell you that they liked you was something that caused him to see her in a new light. And that ended up being the thing that made him love her. And so I think Austen, at the end of the day, is, you know, it's comical and it's a little embarrassing for Catherine, but she doesn't even know. The funny thing is that we know, but she doesn't even know that he knows. But she is calling for us to be more honest about our feelings, even if it's a little embarrassing, because who doesn't want to know they're loved? So it's a nice lesson that I think lasts even until today, when we struggle so much with how to communicate what we're feeling, especially when we're uncertain if those feelings are reciprocated. But maybe be like Catherine and go out and make it known, and the worst thing that can happen is no. One of the great antagonists in Northanger Abbey is Captain Tilney, who is the father of Henry, who is, of course, Catherine's love interest. And he is somebody who has heard all these lies about Catherine at first, to think that she is much wealthier than she in fact is, and later to think that she is much poorer than she in fact is. And he believes those lies, and within his understanding of those lies, he first tries to get her to marry Henry and treats her like she's a goddess, and he's so, well, he's a little bit too dry to treat anybody like she's a goddess. But there's a sense of him really courting her, and then once he learns that she is poor, which in fact she's not as poor as he thinks, he is unable to have the honesty to say, look, sorry, you are way too poor for my son. And he just sends her away with no explanation, which is a thing that plays a real, you know, it's a mindfuck for poor Catherine, because she doesn't know what she did, right? Like, so as Austen is thinking about just how complicated it is to live in a society where people don't say what they're in fact thinking, it's an amazing example of this guy. He's a general, he has all the money, he has the abbey, Northanger Abbey, and he's so cowardly that he is terrified of this little girl, and he just will not speak to her truthfully about why she's been banished, and it does so much damage to her. But of course it's Austen, so we know that the damage is temporary, but it's a really good example of the ways in which in this society, first of all, girls are terrifying, especially pretty girls who are not married, but also just how even the most powerful people are cowardly because they hide behind their lies. And of course she does it all with great irony and humor, but the message is pretty, it's a condemnation of hiding our feelings, which again, I think we need to think about today as we learn to articulate what we're thinking and how we're feeling and our emotions, because it makes for healthier relationships. In Northanger Abbey, our protagonist is fairly ordinary in terms of the way she looks, and in terms of, she's pretty, she's blossomed, but she's not, you know, like a complete beauty, and she's not that talented, and she's not super educated, but she has this amazing gift to tell the truth and to just look at all the lies that are around her and be like, what? And it is at the end the thing that allows her to have the happy ending that every Jane Austen protagonist deserves. And I think through this character, Austen is reminding us that she lived in a ridiculous society with ridiculous fears and with a ridiculous sense of how to relate to one another. And she is sending this hapless yet kind, yet honest, yet very dependable young woman into the world to remind us all that we should be honest and we should face our fears and we should say what we mean. So I hope you guys have, yes, look, that's to that extent is, I mean it so much that. But with that in mind, please let us know. Have you read Northanger Abbey? Have you not? Have you seen some of the very few adaptations? There aren't that many of it, though I think it's a very adaptable film. What do you think about Catherine and all her truthfulness in a lying society, and how do you think it compares to our society today? Anyway, share your comments and like, comment, subscribe, and let's read some more Austen.